The Wonderful World of Darklords. The Peddler's Tales. The Gummi Bears. Enclosed, a small vial of reddish-purple liquid and an invoice for 600 gold pieces. Before I left Gravity Falls, I made a final trip through its town square, where the folk were setting up for some sort of summer carnival. With all of the eye-catching booths and rigged games about, I should not have been surprised to hear a familiar voice. This time, I was the first to approach while he shouted his pitch to anyone who would listen.
You there! Hungry? I've got just what you need to get through a long summer day right here in this jar.
It was clear that no one was hungry, at least not for what he was selling. The townsfolk were veering out of their way to avoid him. I could not keep a smile from my face as I approached. The past few months had been bracing, to say the least, and the peddler was a welcome sight. Far less appealing were his wares. Jars and jars of lumpy, yellowish glop. I should have known you'd be here, I said. But the food cart is a change. What happened to your inventory?
My good friend! I'm happy to see you again, but I'm afraid I have very little in stock, other than this nourishing creamed corn. If only you had run into me earlier, I had a true rarity in my possession. An unbelievably lifelike automaton. It could have passed for a living halfling or gnome at a glance. It had such cute little cheeks, you would have loved it. Unfortunately, it also had a crudely severed cord hanging from its simulacrum of a backside, and this convinced certain cynics among the authorities that my collector's item had been acquired illegitimately.
Heavens. Perish the thought.
I had to offload the item quickly, so I contacted a business associate named Santiago, and he directed me to the proprietor of the Mystery Shack. I came as quickly as I could. I had to leave most of my inventory in storage.
Wait, you mean Stanford Pines? He was willing to buy a clockwork halfling? It was difficult for me to imagine the two agreeing on a price, and I had a brief mental image of them haggling in the Mystery Shack for days until they both passed out from sleep deprivation.
Well, he was willing to trade for it. He spun me a tale of a shadowy establishment known only as the Club, where the elite of Gravity Falls dine on a rare local delicacy. He said he'd come into a sturdy trunk full of this delicacy, but had misplaced the key to its lock, so he was willing to trade it as is for the automaton.
I rolled my eyes. You mean that he stole the trunk and then couldn't get the lock open, so he was as motivated to trade as you were? You two deserve each other.
Hardly. That automaton was a real treasure, one that will no doubt make money for Mr. Pines for years to come once he's obscured its origin with one of his fanciful stories. I, on the other hand, laboriously forced open that accursed trunk to find nothing but jar after jar of creamed corn. I tried selling some back to Mr. Pines, but he told me he'd had enough of the stuff for a lifetime. So here I am, selling off as much as I can before I leave for better prospects.
The peddler had no goods other than creamed corn on display, but I wasn't ready to give up quite that easily. Even his most ludicrous items had been of some value in the past, in contrast to much of what I'd seen in the Mystery Shack, and I was certain that he had something of interest. Or perhaps I simply wanted to assuage the sting of knowing that I had lost the chance to buy a ring of spell storing for the price of a cart horse. I'm afraid I've already eaten, so no creamed corn for me, I lied, and the peddler's ladle wilted in disappointment. But you said you had little else in stock. You must have something to show me, right? Why not make your pitch? Whatever patter you've got for me, it has to be better than Stanford Pines and his grizzly corns and Sasquatches. The peddler made a tremendous show of turning around and debating with himself.
Is it possible she'd believe in? Well, she is a discerning and valued customer. Well, there's no harm in showing her, and if she doesn't credit the story, it's her loss.
I mentally prepared myself. This was going to be quite a gimmick. He turned back to me and produced a vial of purplish liquid from under the lid of his cart.
I shouldn't be telling you this,
he began.
But gummy bears are real.
The peddler gesticulated wildly, nearly bumping a jar of creamed corn off his cart as he dove deeper into the details of his story.
No, the lost magic of their ancestors is very powerful, and they have begun to reclaim it since unlocking the Great Book of Gummi. Have I mentioned the Great Book of Gummi? But that isn't how they travel the forest unseen. As I alluded to earlier, there's a network of secret tunnels throughout the countryside. According to legend, these tunnels contain lightning-quick wooden vessels carved into the likeness of hawks. Using these, the gummy bears can travel almost instantly to any point within their domain.
But not South Gumpton.
Well, the tunnel is ruined.
Right.
But I've already said too much. These truths, like this prized vial of gummy berry juice, were never even meant for me to hold, let alone to share. But for 600 gold pieces, in light of your eminent trustworthiness, I could let this vial go in the interest of advancing arcane knowledge.
I put my hand on the peddler's shoulder. You have to know how this sounds. Gummy bears are a fairy tale. When my niece was 5, I told her a story about gummy bears. She looked at me skeptically, and then asked her mother whether Aunt Danny had been hit on the head. But I know you, and you haven't led me astray before. In fact, you've been surprisingly helpful. So, I think that either you're joking with me, you're trying to outdo that grifter at the Mystery Shack because you got one over on you, or there really is some powerful magic contained in that vial, but you don't want me to know its real origin, so you're being deliberately ridiculous. If it is a joke, I hope you know that bilking me for 600 gold pieces is hardly going to be conducive to our friendship, so I suggest you stop before it goes too far.
Excellent guesses both, my friend, and I know that you're not one to be taken in by an outlandish story. That's probably why you're getting along so much better here in Gravity Falls than I. Why I came here having heard wild stories of an apocalypse and forests full of bizarre creatures, and even a one-eyed dream demon who was still on the loose. But all of the locals I've spoken to have told me that such foolish stories are absurd, counter to everything they've seen, everything they've experienced. Now, here I am telling you tales about hidden beings with innocent hearts and ancient books of beneficent magic, and I see the same look in your eyes. Obviously, I've made my pitch to the wrong customer. I must be losing my touch.
Clearly. That pitch to the wrong customer line was far too heavy-handed. You're lucky you've built up so much credit with me. I'll take the vial, and good luck with the rest of this local delicacy. I started to leave, then paused. Oh, and you should know that when I spoke with Pines last night, he said there were some particularly acquisitive Agrabanians in town who nearly emptied his shelves. They may or may not have left by now.
Ah. Well, perhaps they can buy some creamed corn from me.
The peddler folded down the parasol over his cart and quickly began to stow jars inside.
If they hurry.
Although Eldritch Sight assured me that the potion was, in fact, imbued with transmutation magic, I could not shake the question of whether the peddler had simply sold me a vial of grape juice. So when I was on the outskirts of town, I took a small sip. I spent the next minute or so in the forest surrounding Gravity Falls, ricocheting off the trees. If 2 of them were close enough together and my angle was correct, I could carry them between them all the way to the top and then down again. I have no idea of what other applications the gummy berry juice might have, Yensid, but I can at least assure you that I am sending you an extremely entertaining way to spend an afternoon. Regards, D.
Fascinating. This nameless peddler of yours has quite the variety of rare items in his continually changing stock. As I understand it, gummy bears do not entrust their secrets to just anyone. Yet my diligent study and research into the potion you have provided reveals that it is indeed a genuine sample of gummy berry juice. There must be more to this peddler than his rather eccentric persona implies. There were rumors the gummy bears once dwelled in the forest of shadows of Darkon. I suspect they still do at times. However, the secret tunnel system they utilize, combined with the speed and strength of the gummy berry juice, they are nearly impossible to locate. After all, it is difficult to sneak up on a society that excels at bouncing here, there, and everywhere. everywhere throughout the domains of dread.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Aslan. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.